Well, what do we have here, gentlemen? A little fantasy football talk coming straight to you from Durham, North Carolina. I don't know where this voice came from. I don't know. Sorry. I apologize for that. Let's start over again. Fantasy football motherfuckers, we're back. Another week, another dollar, three left to go. The playoff race is just getting about to be crazy. That voice again, I don't know where it's coming from. So it's me, Big D, the commish, for your weekly roundup. Let's start right off. First things first. All 10 teams this week were within 34 points. I think that's a record. I don't think we've ever had a week where everybody was close. Every matchup was pretty tight. It was a great week of fantasy football, just like I predicted. And if you didn't have fun doing it this week, then just get the fuck out of the league because I don't know what you want. This was great. This was great. So let's start right off. It was the closest game of the week. It was also the lowest scoring game of the week. It was Brad over Sharp, 118 to 117. And on a certain level, you really do got to feel pretty bad for Sharp. No offense, Brad, but really the big difference in this matchup was Brad had Peyton Manning, who scored 30 points, and AJ Green, who scored 29. Then he had five other players in single digits. So it was really like a two-horse race on that one. And Sharp had almost everybody in double digits. He had a great team performance, only two in singles. But the backbreaker was definitely the 17 points from Bengals quarterback Andy Dalton. One, I'm surprised you went with him because I know you hate gingers. Two, I hate the Bengals, so you know I don't support the decision. And three, he totally fucked you. A little more and you would have had this game. And you got to be thinking if Rodgers was healthy, Sharp probably would have ran away with this matchup. But as it stands, you play to win the game, and Brad won it 118 to 117. Really kind of setting that whole division on fire now. There's, I think, three teams tied at 6-4. So it's wide open in the Pearl Street. And a lot of it has to do with that matchup right there. Next one, Ant over Zach, 121 to 112. Ant, fucker, dude, I'm glad I can beat you. I can't beat anybody else, but I can beat you. 121 on paper doesn't seem like a great showing, but you look at the star power this kid has in his lineup. Drew Brees, Adrian Peterson, the racist Riley Cooper, who's going to throw all these N-words out of here or kick all these N-words asses. I don't remember. I just know he said the N-word a lot, and it was kind of weird because he has long hair, kind of looks like he's from like southern Alabama. You don't want to be doing that. And Alshon Jeffrey. For an example, this week, those four players combined for 101 points out of Anthony's 121. That's 83% of Anthony's total lineup on just four players. He's got a lot of other players that kind of are up and down, but especially with Drew Brees and Adrian Peterson, they're always going to get a huge chunk of points, and that's really the big difference, I think, is that number one draft pick picking you up, Adrian Peterson, and then just going straight for the quarterback in round two. Alshon Jeffrey is solid. It's just a decent team, and it's going to be fun to see how he does in the playoffs, because if one player has a shitty game, he's kind of in trouble. Zach, again, you got to kind of feel a little bad for Z. Tony Romo only posted 10 points. Mike James only put up 4 points and got hurt in the matchup, and that led to the 9-point loss. You look at Tony Romo, he's averaging somewhere around 20 points a game. Mike James, you got to expect probably to get around 10, and Ant probably wins this game. Zach probably wins this game. It was only a 9-point loss, and that injury, you got to think, had a lot to do with it. Especially with a winning effort by the Buccaneers, they might have pulled it off. So Zach loses. It doesn't knock him out of the playoff race, but it makes it really hard. He's got to win out, and some people have to fuck up a lot to get him in there. So not all hope is lost for the Z-Man, but it got a lot tougher for you, buddy. Next up, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Shekton over the Birdman, 121 to 104. Now there's two reasons why I love this and one reason why I hate it. The reason why I hate it is because Bird, the only active service member in this whole fucking shindig, lost on Veterans Day. So that kind of sucks. And I feel bad about that. It seems very un-American and totally Nazi to have that happen. I love it for two other reasons. One, it is Shekton's first win, and I know last week I said I was losing faith, and I stand by it. I own my words. But I did say all along that I thought he would eventually get one. And I also said last week that this was probably his last chance because of the second reason why I love this. Because finally, Chase didn't just like magic himself into victory world. I mean, Chase's team is scoring not many points, but winning a fuck ton of games. And so finally, order and justice was kind of fulfilled, but also Chase got kind of stabbed in the nuts on the whole Veterans Day thing. So, but there it is. Sheck is now 1-9. He's got a victory under his belt, and I couldn't be happier for the dude. He had a solid performance too. He only had 3 players in single digits. The big difference though is 30 points from Robert Griffin III. If the guy can keep his MacGyver rubber band and bubble gum ligaments together, the guy can clearly play and put up some fantasy numbers. So it's a good workhorse to build your team around no matter who you have. And Sheck showed that his team is worthy of a win. So good on you. Chase, buddy, you had 8 out of 9 of your players scored 16 points or less. And 5 out of those 9 scored 10 points or less. So it just was an all-around low day for your team. And when that happens, you're just going to lose. I don't really have a lot of analyzing to do about that. Your team just kind of sucked this week. J-Ball finally gets a couple wins, strung them together. I think it's his second win in a row. Gets a 124 to 107 point victory over Georgie Porgy Puddin' Pie. J-Ball, you got 55 points from Pierre Thomas and Calvin Johnson combined, and then a further 17 points from the Carolina Panthers defense. It was just solid. I mean, the other players kind of not so much, but those 3 is a big core of points to kind of build on the rest of your team. The rest of the team doesn't have to perform that hard when you get that. Calvin Johnson playing against my Steelers this week is going to be lined up against Ike Taylor. He's probably going to burn us, and we're probably going to lose. But I'd love to talk shit and say that Ike Taylor will shut him down. So, yeah, fuck Calvin Johnson, I think. But J-Ball pulling together a good, strong win. With that draw, J-Ball needs a little help, but he's in a good position to sneak into the playoffs because he has not as many losses as other teams. So if he wins out and some other people lose some rough ones, J-Ball's in a good spot. Jordan, nobody in your team scored over 20 points. You had 5 that scored under 10, and your highest player was Matthew Stafford with 20 points. That's all I'm going to say. Your team just blew. And finally, the matchup of the week and our weekly beer winner. I'm out of beer. Sorry, Tom. I didn't even think of it when I started recording. Here, I'll get a Gatorade. Alright, so weekly Gatorade kind of looks like jizz, so I'm sorry about that. But Tommy Gregg, 138 points versus 126 over me. Big victory for Tom. Bad loss for me. It puts Tom in a really good spot going forward, puts me in a little bit of a hole. I'm kind of in this weird middle land where I need to win, and I need to win hard for the next couple matchups to even have a chance in the playoffs. Tom had 4 players with 20 points or more. There was no major standout on his team. No one player really kind of carried it. He just had a good general team performance. Nick Foles, who looks kind of dopey but can throw the fuck out of a football, was the highest player with 24 points. And so Tom just beat me, and it was just a good team. Me, I had 0 points from Adam Vinatieri. That was his worst performance of the season. I had 8 points from Matt Forte. That was his worst performance of the season. And I had 5 points from Vincent Jackson. That was his 3rd worst for the season. I think Tony Gonzalez and Phillip Rivers each had their 2nd worst performances. So here I am yet again, most points scored in the league, but 2nd most points scored against me. Just doesn't add up. I can't get any wins going. No traction. I think I'm in trouble. I think I'm going to miss the playoffs for the 3rd fucking year in a row. But Tom, congratulations. Really, truly, bravo, and fuck off. But mostly bravo, I think. God, there's like a gallon of Gatorade stuck in my mustache. The trade deadline passed. No more trades can be had. Sorry, gentlemen. There are 1 more week of buys after this current week, which is nice because then we don't have to worry about it. We can just all play our best lineups. And 3 weeks left until the playoffs, gentlemen. So let's fucking figure this out. Only 1 team is eliminated from the playoffs already. That's Sheckton. Everybody else has an outside chance, even Porge. So Porge, keep winning and hope for the best, and you might sneak in there. Now, on the topic of playoffs, we had our vote on the playoff tiebreaker. It was interesting because only half the league thought of the 8 people that voted, only 4 thought that Shechten's division got an advantage. The other 4 thought he didn't. Surprising. 6 people though thought that there should be some kind of tiebreaker if one team from the Pearl Street division is within one game of a team in the Caroline Street division that makes the playoffs. Generally, everybody wanted to expand the playoffs. The option on there was 6. 2 people wrote in that they wanted to expand the playoffs to 8. Just some couple things. I'm not saying a hard line on this quite yet, but some things to think about. One, Shek won, and he beat somebody in his division. I'm not entirely sure what that means about balance, but I think it does kind of change the discussion a little bit. He beat somebody in his own division. So that team didn't get 2 free wins like the whole thought always was. Also, as of right now, of the 4 teams in the playoffs, 3 of them are from the Pearl Street division, which is not Shek's division. And I'm kind of against expanding the playoffs just because I don't think it's good. I think it ruins the postseason or the regular season. And I also think just setting a number, even if it's 6 or especially 8, is just very arbitrary. If we set it at 6, maybe there's only one team, like 5 teams, right? One extra one that should be in the playoffs. That 6th team just gets a free bid for nothing? Or what if there's 7? That 7th team gets knocked out for no real reason? It's just kind of an arbitrary line. Well, nothing quite like getting cut off because you run out of storage, huh? Oh well, minor editing. Anyway, as I was saying, arbitrary, right? It's kind of a weird thing. I'm not comfortable with it. I want to be as democratic as possible, so I personally think that we should be settling it by points. It's what we tiebreak everything on. Trophies, ranking, all of that is all based off of how many points a team has scored. But nobody else, one other person voted for that. So, again, I'm really not into the idea of playoffs, and I know the league isn't super into the idea of points. So what I'm thinking is this, is we settle it on the field. Good old classic America. If there's 7 teams that all are within the one game, then they all make the playoffs. If there's 5, if there's 6, if there's 8. Now remember, the concern is that if a team from the Pearl Street division is one game back from a team in the Caroline Street division that makes the playoffs, and the Pearl Street team doesn't make the playoffs, then there's the feeling that there was an unfair advantage. So what I'm proposing is this. Let's say a team from the Caroline Street division makes the playoffs. So there's your 4 teams. And there are 3 teams, let's say, from the Pearl Street division, all one game behind that final Caroline Street division team. Those 3 teams all make it. The team with the most points in that case would have to get a bye in the next round or something like that. But only the teams within the range make the playoffs. Then it's less arbitrary, and it's fair. Everybody who should qualify qualifies. Nobody gets a free ride. Nobody gets left out. And I think it's kind of a nice mix of both worlds. Those of you who want to expand the playoffs get to expand the playoffs. Me and the other person who are kind of less about that and more about the points get that too, because the seeding of the playoffs is all based off of points. So you kind of get the 2 dovetailed together. That's kind of what I'm thinking. If you have major complaints about this, let me know. If you just don't like it and have no real reason why, other than the fact that it wasn't what you voted for, please spare me, because I'm kind of worn out with this thing. But I really think it's the best of both worlds. If you, for some reason, have like a genius idea or a genius issue with this, something that I'm not seeing, please bring it up. But if it's just, I don't like it, then fuck off, please don't. I've got way too much to deal with than to hear you complain just because you don't like it, all right? So that's what I'm thinking. I'll give it a couple days, let everybody kind of watch the video and get to respond to this if they feel so. But that's what I'm thinking. All the teams within one game make it. Now, the caveat to this is this. If it stays the way it is now, where 3 of the 4 teams in the playoffs are Pearl Street division people, it's staying at 4. There's no reason to change it. Clearly, there was no advantage because as of right now, the Pearl Street is dominating the Caroline Street division, all right? So that's where I'm staying with that. If it's dominated by the Pearl Street, I'm not adding more Pearl Street people just because, okay? And I'm not just adding Caroline Street people either just because. But I'm thinking in our best effort for fairness, what we should do is if there's any teams, no matter what the number, one game out, and that's compared to a Caroline Street team, then let's fucking put them in the playoffs and let's dance, all right? So have at me. Last thing I want to talk about is probably tomorrow I'll be getting it up. I don't know if I'm going to be putting it on. Tomorrow I'll be getting it up. At some point, I'll probably be putting it on Google Docs and I'll try to share it with everybody. But I made a sweet playoff predictor where you can kind of play with your record and other people's records and see what you need as a team to clinch a playoff berth or kind of predict and see who's going to make the playoffs, all right? So it's kind of fun. It's stupid, but it's something I was working on. And I think you guys might enjoy just kind of tinkering around and seeing what the different scenarios are for the different teams. So I'll get that up there as soon as possible. And always, with love, consideration, and a whole lot of sex appeal. Adios, amigos.